Good morning, St. Augustine. Your access to the voices of top local newsmakers starts now. Here's your host, Liz Ryan.
Good morning, and thank you for tuning in. I hope you learn a lot this morning. I know I will. I have a very interesting guest with me this morning, somebody who's very important and very well known and very liked and loved here in St. Johns County, Mr. Eddie Creamer. Good morning, Mr. Creamer.
Good morning, Liz. Happy Sunday morning. It's good to be with you.
I've heard it both ways, Creamer and Kramer. It's like coffee creamer.
It's creamer, just like coffee creamer.
So you're the county appraiser, and that's a very lofty position here in St. Johns County. Let's talk about you, the man, first, Mr. Creamer. Did you grow up here in Florida? Are you a Floridian?
Yeah, I'm actually a third-generation Floridian. I grew up in a little town in the Florida Panhandle called Port St. Joe. My grandfather moved there in the late 20s. And my parents were both born there. Both of my grandfathers moved there in the late 20s. My parents were born there. I was born there and lived there for, my early life through high school. And when I left high school around, in 1976, Port St. Joe had a population of about 5,000 people. And today it has a population of about 5,000 people. So the town hasn't changed much in those years.
Are you a real numbers guy? Have you always been drawn to math and statistics and things like that?
I am a numbers nerd. Actually, my college degree is in accounting, so I am one of those people. And my initial training and career was as an industrial engineer in a textile manufacturer. So, yes, I am a numbers nerd. I am a statistics nerd. I am an efficiency nerd, all of those things.
What brought you to St. Augustine?
After my initial stint as an industrial engineer in the textile business, I got into banking and put my accounting degree to work in banking as a chief financial officer. And I was a banker for 35 years of my career, the last 17 or so here in St. Augustine. I came to St. Augustine for an opportunity in banking. Through my career in the Panhandle in banking, I got to know, a number of investors and different people who are involved in the industry, and they purchased Prosperity Bank in St. Augustine, and I came with that group to St. Augustine to Prosperity Bank.
What do you like about St. Augustine?
Oh, gosh. The easier question there would be, what do you not like about St. Augustine? Julie and I love everything about St. Augustine. When we moved here, our oldest son was in the 5th grade. Our youngest son was in kindergarten. And we just found it to be just a very welcoming place. I mean, you've got the ocean, you've got the town, you've got all kind of things to do here. We found everybody just very friendly, very warm. Obviously, the schools are great. The proximity to other things in Florida that you enjoy doing is very good. When you live in the Panhandle, you're 5 to 6 hours away from everything. If you want to go to Atlanta, you're 6 hours away. If you want to go to Disney, you're 6 hours away. If you want to go to the Keys, forget it. That's like a 2-day drive. Here you get more opportunity to be more involved in things. So there's very little that we don't like about St. Augustine.
Are you a big beach guy?
I was a big beach guy in the Panhandle, and I will say I am a beach guy on Gulf Coast beaches. Gulf Coast beaches are sugar white sand and crystal clear water, and the water's very shallow for a long way out. Atlantic beaches are different, so as we moved here, we are less beach people. I've also got older as I live here, so I'm more concerned about the effects of the sun. My dermatologist reminds me of that every year when I go in to see her. So, yeah.
Surf can be pretty tough here in St. Augustine. You get knocked over by the waves a lot.
Yeah, Gulf Coast beaches are different. The Gulf is shallower. The Gulf is usually calmer. It's mostly always clear. So before you get eaten by something, you can actually see it swim up, those kind of things. But we became less beach people over the time. I was my high school, later in high school years, my summer job was a lifeguard in the state park there in Port St. Joe. So I had enough sun exposure probably in those 3 years to last me for the rest of my life.
Do you have any hobbies? Do you collect anything?
I occasionally play golf. I play less golf now that my sons are grown and married and out on their own. Mm-hmm. I've always had just a keen interest in cars. So there was a period of time I collected, I didn't collect, but I like to own, sports cars, faster cars. The only hobby I had for many years, probably till I got too old for it up until last year, is I actually raced cars. in a couple of small series. We raced Mazda Miatas for a while. We raced Mustangs for a while. We raced Corvettes for a little bit, but I've kind of outgrown that as well.
Do you ever go to the Classic Car Museum on Route 1?
I go to the Classic Car Museum here. I go to the Brumos Museum up in the north part of the county. Yeah, anytime there's cars on display, I'm going to go walk around and drool and ooh and ah over the cars that are there.
They have a great farmers market, too, now at the Classic Car Museum.
They do. They have a great collection there and always have good activities there.
All right, let's get down to the nuts and bolts, the less fun stuff. No offense. At the appraiser's office, I understand you have a great staff. Who is this lovely lady next to you?
So with me today is Jennifer Zuber. Jennifer is our communications director, and she makes sure that we try to get our message out in the most effective and most consistent way to let people know what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and how we can help them with, if as a property owner, one of the largest expenses you have, and that's property taxes. And we've been very fortunate to have Jennifer with us since the beginning of this year. Jennifer has formerly, before us, worked in county administration. She was involved in economic development and communication and outreach there as well. So we're very fortunate to have Jennifer with us.
Tell me more about your staff.
So our staff, we have a very highly qualified staff. I like to say they are curious and smart, and they care. We are focused, laser focused on customer service, which is one of the things I think I brought into the office 9 years ago. Coming from banking, customer service is critical. So going into government, I've always believed that there was no reason government couldn't focus on customer service as well. So our staff is there to serve our public and take care of their needs and answer their questions and make sure the things that are important to the public are important to us. Our staff now, we have about 40 people in our office. And interesting.
Oh, I didn't know it was that big.
Yeah, an interesting comment on that is 9 years ago, there were 55 staff members in the office. And over that past 9 years, we're down to 40 employees, but the size of what we do has doubled. So the quality of the individuals that we have now, the training, the motivation, the technology that we've given them to do their job has allowed us to be a lot more efficient in performing our responsibilities in the county. And if we are more efficient, that means we demand less of taxpayers' money. And as a taxpayer myself, and being in the private sector for 35 years of my life, I understand, I think, how important that is.
That's fantastic. It's not very often you hear about government getting smaller and more efficient.
Novel approach, right? Yeah, I think people in government should have been in the private sector for a while, so they had to live under government. And so you can get perspectives.
Wait, stop. Say that again. People in government should what?
Well, if I was a banker for 35 years, it's a very highly regulated industry. But in addition to that, you have the state regulations. And so if you've been in the private sector and you've had to live under government, you've had to do the things that you have to do to be a responsible citizen. And I'm not saying that's not important. It is very important. When you get into government, you know the frustrations that you've had on the other side. You can work to try to alleviate those frustrations. In our office, we answer our telephones. If you leave us a message, we're going to return that message by the end of the day. If we're not able to answer your call immediately, we are going to return your call by the end of the business day. If you send us an email, we're going to respond to that email by the end of the business day. I mean, that's the kind of things I think government is certainly capable of doing. You have to do it in the private sector. In the private sector, if you don't do those kind of things, your customer will vote with their feet and they'll go somewhere else and do business somewhere else. Government needs to do the same thing. There's no reason you can't be responsive. We consider in our office, there's 186,000 parcels that we praise every year. We consider we have 186,000 customers. So our job is to do the best we can to serve the needs of those customers within the framework of the statutes that we're governed by.
There ought to be a law. Let's propose a law that you can't be a lifer in government. You have to work in the private sector first. I love that concept. You're listening to Good Morning St. Augustine. I'm your host, Liz Ryan, talking to County Appraiser Mr. Eddie Creamer this morning. You're in a very, very busy season, I'll bet. What huge mailer just went out?
This is a busy season for us. So last Friday, the 15th, the TRIM notices went out. Notice of proposed millage. TRIM stands for Truth in Millage. You mentioned earlier that I was very liked and loved in St.
Yes.
Augustine, probably except for this period of time. Now that you've got your proposed taxes in the mail, you may like us a lot less.
It's not your fault.
It's not. I want to remind everybody, all we do is create the values, the taxing authorities impose the taxes. But the trim notice is the most important mailing you're going to get this year in regards to your property taxes. It is going to disclose to you our proposed values for your property. It's going to disclose any and all exemptions that you have. It's going to show any assessment limitation caps, which are the homestead assessment limitation cap, the non-homestead assessment limitation cap. So I'm going to show you the taxing information from the taxing authorities and when those public hearings are going to occur. The most important part of that is it triggers a 25-day period under the Florida Taxpayer Bill of Rights, which you can formally appeal your value or an exemption that our office and you cannot agree on. And those appeals are filed through the clerk of the court's office with the Value Adjustment Board, which is totally independent of our office and what we do. So it does give that your property owner, your taxpayer, that additional voice to air a grievance and perhaps get relief.
Truth and millage doesn't mean much if you don't know what millage is. Now, wait, Mr. Creamer, dumb it down for someone like me. Millage, what the heck is it?
Millage is just your tax rate per thousand of value. So what the property appraiser does every year is we appraise, because Florida is known as a just market value state. The property appraiser establishes just market value for your property as of January 1st of every tax year. Okay, that's the only thing we establish. Then your assessed value is calculated based on any assessment limitation caps you have. So if you have homestead exemption, you have a 3% cap on the amount your assessed value can go up. If you're non-homesteaded, you have a 10% cap on the amount your assessment can go up. So when we establish just market value less your caps, which accumulate over time, become your assessed value. Then your assessed value minus any exemptions that you have becomes your taxable value. The taxable value is what that millage rate is applied to determine your taxes. So St. Johns County, the St. Johns County School Board, Florida Inland Navigation, St. Johns River Water Management District, the mosquito control, there are a number of taxing authorities that apply millage rates. And those taxes collected fund their budgets. So when you look at your trim notice, you will see your value, and then you'll see a column below that shows each of those taxing authorities. It'll show their proposed millage this year. It'll show you what the millages were last year, and it will show you what the rollback rate is in the center column and what your taxes are proposed to be this year.
Okay, Mr. Creamer, let's talk about homestead exemptions. That would be your primary residence, correct? And you can only have one, is that right?
You can only receive one homestead. Homestead exemption in Florida is the most important property tax exemption you will get or can get for a couple of reasons. Homestead exemption reduces your taxable value by $50,722 this year. Most people will remember homestead exemption is $50,000. But last year a statute was passed to index one of the bands of homestead to inflation. So that indexing to inflation this year increased the second band to $25,722 for the total of $50,722. So let me stop there and define. Homestead exemption is $50,722, but it comes in two bands. A $25,000 band that exempts you from all taxes, then a second $25,000 band that exempts you from all taxes with the exception of school taxes. So to qualify for homestead exemption, you must own your home as of January 1st of the tax year. It must be your primary residence, and you may not receive any residency-based benefit anywhere else in the United States. Mm-hmm. And that's very important because once granted homestead exemption, if you're receiving a residency-based benefit anywhere else, the penalties for that in Florida can be pretty severe, and they're statutory. So the property appraiser does not have any discretion on waiving those penalties or changing how we have to enforce that improperly claimed homestead.
I can't stress enough, everybody should have this homestead exemption. Do most people have that, Mr. Creamer, the homestead exemption, or are there still a lot of people who are unaware of it or don't understand it so they don't bother getting it?
You know, Liz, I would say most people have homestead exemption. There's still new residents that maybe have not lived in Florida and they moved to Florida and they weren't informed on the homestead exemption. Those are still out there. You know, we get those calls from time to time. Our office does everything we possibly can to communicate to realtors, title companies, attorneys' offices about homestead exemption. When a property changes hand in St. Johns County, a residential property, we mail letters to the new buyer and the seller. And part of that letter is, you may qualify for homestead exemption. Please contact our office and let us make sure that if you qualify for it, we will get that to you. But there's still people, folks that may not know that. And so it's very important that we continue through avenues like this and the other things we do to get that information out there. Mm-hmm. Property values in our county over the past 9 years have almost doubled. So that 3% assessment limitation cap on your homestead is very, very important.
Very important. How do you go about getting the homestead exemption?
So to get the homestead exemption, you can come into our office at 4030 Lewis Speedway and apply. If you come into our office, it will take you about 10 to 15 minutes to apply. Or you can go to www.sjcpa.gov and you can apply online. If you apply online, it'll take about 10 to 15 minutes as well. You can do it from the comfort of wherever you want to do it online. And within 3 business days, you will get an approval email back from our office telling you that we've granted the homestead. Or if there's more information we may need, you will get that email back as well requesting that additional information. We take about 12,000 new homestead exemption applications each year, and about 65% of those are done online. And so for the folks that find that convenient, we welcome them to use the online portal. For those that want to come into the office, we welcome you as well. I'd love to meet you. My office is strategically positioned near our customer service counter so I can hear people when they come in, and I like to go out and visit and find out where they're moving from and how they ended up here. So either way you want to apply, we try to make it as easy as possible.
I've got to say, Mr. Creamer, you have a reputation in this county as being very approachable, very helpful, and very friendly.
Well, I appreciate that. Banking was a people business. This is a people business, right? And that's what we do. And the better we can do that with individuals and try to make the process easy and simple and enjoyable. And, if we can get people to come into a government office and laugh, we've accomplished our goal.
Wow. So the trim notices that are in the mail now, right? Do they state your home's value?
Yes, they do. They'll see on the top of the trim notice, there's 2 sections. One is going to state last year's value. So we're going to show you what your last year just market was, what your last year assessed, and what your last year taxable was. The next section is going to show you this year's proposed just market, proposed assessed, and proposed taxable. So you have it right there for easy comparison. So if we raised your value and you don't think your value went up, you should have been raised. We put it right there in front of you so you can see it and give us a call.
And how do you contest that?
You can contest that just by calling us, 904-827-5500, or you can call 904-827-5520. 5520 is my direct number. I answer my telephone, and I'll make sure that if you're not happy with your value, we'll get the appraisers to take a look at it and communicate it with you. If by calling our office, we can't come to an agreement on that value, then during trim, we encourage you to file a petition with the Value Adjustment Board. And that's done through the clerk of the court's office, their website. We will direct you to that website and help you file, because that's what the Value Adjustment Board is for. It's the taxpayer's right to take that to an independent magistrate, and we encourage the taxpayer to do that. So 827-5500 for our general line, or 827-5520 to get me directly. If you go to our website, there's also a contact us link, and question your value. You can reach us that way.
Approximately what percentage of homeowners here in the county contest their assessed value?
In our county, out of the 186,000 parcels that we assess, we actually have less than 100 individual property owners who end up at the Value Adjustment Board every year. Our office, we're going to work with the public. Value is an opinion. I was a banker for long enough to know an appraisal is an opinion of value, and we understand that. On the exemption side, that's more statutory, so we don't have a lot of leeway in that. But individual property owners, we end up with less than 100. In fact, last year, we only had 7 individual value petitions actually go before the magistrate.
Is it uncommon for a property value to actually go down?
It is not uncommon over a business cycle, and I'm very glad you asked that question, because back in 2008, for folks who remember that, values went down very dramatically, 40-50%. And then as values started to come back, we're all accustomed, really over the last 9 to 10 years, values have gone up. But this year, for the first time, we're beginning to see values stabilize and in some areas begin to go down. So when you get your trim notice this year, you may see that your just market value didn't change or went down slightly. What's important about that is you may see that your taxes go up when that occurs. And the reason for that is there is, in the statutes, there is a clawback provision. So over the years, when your values go up and you build up your assessment limitation caps, when your values stabilize, those caps are clawed back, and that's by statute. So if your just market value didn't change this year, your assessed value is going to go up by the limitation cap if you're homesteaded, or by the assessment limitation cap if you're not homesteaded. So you may see that change year over year. We're doing training this afternoon and in the morning. We did training last Thursday, and we'll do it Friday morning with our staff to help them be able to communicate to taxpayers when they see that on their trim notice, how to explain it.
What's the maximum it can go up if you're homesteaded?
The maximum it can go up, your assessed value, is the 3% cap.
3%. And if you're not homesteaded?
10%.
10%. Okay. What kinds of factors play into your home value increasing?
Home values in Florida and in St. Johns County are just market value. The way we determine that is sales. In our county, we process about 16,000 sales a year of single-family residential homes. The sales price determines just market value. So in a particular neighborhood, as homes sell, we record those sales prices after the sales are qualified, and then those sales are used to determine value on the other properties that are in the house, based on things like lot size, lot location, square footage of the home, age of the home, condition of the home, etc. So it's all a sales-driven type process to determine that just market value.
That's kind of out of someone's control, though. They can't help what's going on in their neighborhood. But what about things that you can control? Like, for example, if I put in brand new, beautiful granite countertops in my home, does that affect the value? And do you come and look?
It does not. Our office appraises without regard to the interior of your home. We're reappraising the exterior structure based on just market value. The sales price will tell us the quality of the home when it sells. In fact, our office doesn't have access to the interior of your home unless you invite us in. So when a home is listed for sale or sells, we have access to the multiple listing services. At that point, we can see pictures of the inside. So if your home sold for X and the home next to you sold for X plus 2, we can then look at the pictures and tell if there is a difference. And if there's a difference, that's more of a quality, then we can tell that. But we're not able to determine that until the sale actually occurs.
So you look at the pictures that the realtor took?
Yes, if it's listed and if it sells. That's the way we're able to update quality features.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. You know, I've lived in other states where they say, don't let the appraiser come in. Don't let them in your house, because if they see the beautiful new cabinets, they'll raise your appraisal.
That's not the fact here. We're going to use sales to drive value. Sometimes we will get invited into a home, and it's mainly because a homeowner wants to show us damage or inferior fixtures or coverings and that sort of thing. And if we look at that, then sometimes we will lower the quality of the property. You know, if the house that's sold next door is marble and granite, but your home is formica and shag carpet, then we'll adjust the quality to account for that difference.
Really?
In value.
So I could call you and I could say, I know you've been in my neighbor's house and it's beautiful, but our house is much more modest. Come see.
Absolutely. If you we won't go in your house, but if you contact us and ask us to come in, certainly we will.
That's interesting.
That's our job, to make sure. Our job is to make sure we get your value correct, right? And so if that helps us get it correct, then we will do that.
How about something like a new roof?
Anything that requires a permit. So if it requires a permit, you pull the permit, we get that permit. So we log that permit and we track that permit until it's closed. And when it's closed, then we will adjust the value. Something like a new roof is basically going to adjust the quality of the home, right? Because you've just improved that. If you put in a swimming pool, we're going to get that permit. We're going to value the swimming pool based on the swimming pool.
So you work closely with the permitting office.
Absolutely. We get all permits electronically, even new construction. When you permit a brand new house, and there was a bunch of them permitted in the last 7 years, those permits come to us. We actually add that lot. We trace the sketch of the home. We get it on, and when the home is CO'd, then we add it to the tax roll.
Oh, interesting. You're listening to Good Morning St. Augustine. I'm your host, Liz Ryan, talking to county property appraiser Mr. Eddie Creamer. This county is growing so fast. Has that affected home values?
Absolutely. When you say fast growth, that usually means to me as a banker, there is a demand for something, right? So we're growing. That means people want to be here. I happen to believe there's a lot of people that liked or want to move to Florida for a lot of reasons. And I think if you don't live in Florida and you look at where you want to live in Florida, St. Johns County probably hits pretty high on that list. So when you want to live here, that creates a demand. One of the things it creates a demand for is housing. Housing is not necessarily a commodity, but it is based a lot on supply and demand. So when there's a high demand for something and the supply doesn't meet that demand, then the prices will go up. And in the last, 9 to 10 years here, the supply of homes has not necessarily met the demand, so the prices continue to go up. The builders are building homes. There's still a demand for the homes. In banking, we considered, when you listed a home for sale, we considered if it stayed on the market 6 months until it sold, a normal market. 3 or 4 years ago in St. Johns County, the time on market was about 3 days. That's not a normal market. That signifies very high demand, and prices will go up to that. I think we're back now to just over a month on the market. That still shows a very high demand for property, for homes.
Mr. Creamer, are you hearing from people who were born and raised here in St. Augustine, this isn't fair, that the values are going up so high, I can't afford it, I've lived here all my life, I didn't vote for this growth, I didn't want this growth, why should my property value go up? Hence my taxes going up.
Yeah, and certainly we hear that. But if you've lived here all your life and you own a home, you're probably homesteaded. So the most your assessed value is going up every year is 3%. So you are getting relief on that rapid increase in the values of homes. So there is some relief through the homestead exemption. But it doesn't stop from hearing that. But the caps on homestead are very beneficial to long-term homesteaders.
Let's talk about the difference between valuing commercial property as opposed to residential property.
It's very interesting. With commercial property is valued different than residential property. Commercial property ideally is valued on the income approach or discounted cash flows, because a commercial property is for one purpose, and that's to generate income. And so we do our very best to evaluate those properties on the cash flow or the income they produce. So on a residential property, we're going to look at sales, what sales occurred in the neighborhood. We're going to compare bedroom and bath counts, age of the house, size of the lot, location of the lot to get that value. On commercial, we're going to use the discounted cash flows or the income from the building itself. If it's a rental building, there's rent cash flows. If it's retail, then there's cash flows from sales. And we're going to use that method evaluation in any instance that we can for commercial, and we use the cost approach to justify that. So if we value a building based on the income approach and we get one value, then we're going to go look at cost tables and information that we get from CoStar, CB Richard Ellis, a number of different sources on what it costs to build that same building to make sure the income approach is accurate on those. Where on residential properties, we're never going to consider the income approach. It's always going to be market and cost.
Has your office seen a huge increase in the number of commercial properties that you're tasked with valuing?
We've seen an increase in the number of commercial properties, but not huge. St. Johns County is a residential community. We are a bedroom community to Jacksonville. The demand here is for residential housing. The new commercial buildings we see are generally service-type professions to the residents that live here. So while there's an increase, I can't say huge. The county issues about 500 new building permits a month for residential homes. That's where the big increase comes.
I feel like the shopping hasn't caught up with the growth here in St. John's. We still need a Trader Joe's.
We go to
Jacksonville. We need a Whole Foods. We need better shopping here.
Yeah.
I don't know why the big corporations haven't jumped on the opportunity, because St. Johns County is growing so fast.
The land's too expensive.
Oh, is that why?
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Creamer, I could talk to you all day long. Unfortunately, this half hour flew by. But again, I want to stress that your office has a reputation, and you in particular, of being so approachable and so helpful. What should folks do if they get their trim notice and they don't agree with it or they don't understand it?
Absolutely. First of all, come by our office, 4030 Lewis Speedway. We're open from 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. We'd love to see you. Call our office, 904-827-5500. Call me, 904-827-5520, or email me at eddie@sjcpa.gov. I will make sure that you get your question answered. I will make sure you get to the right people to help you out. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to communicate with our office if you have any concerns. Don't depend on what your neighbor told you. Just call our office and we'll make sure you get the right information.
Even your email address is friendly. It's Eddie. It's not like E. Creamer. It's Eddie.
Yeah,
I love that.
I don't know who Mr. Creamer is. So.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining me and your lovely coworker, Jennifer, over there being so quiet.
Yeah, absolutely my pleasure. It's great to be here.
What do you think you'll do with the rest of your Sunday?
Well, Sunday is my day. Usually, I call them, if it's golf season, I call them my golf naps. I tell my wife that I'm going upstairs to read. I turn on golf, I get my book, and I usually take a nice nap. So that's what I'll try to do today.
I gave up golf because I could never get the ball through the windmill and into the clown's mouth.
That's the best kind of golf.
Thank you, and keep in touch, please.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Good Morning St. Augustine. And remember, all of our programs can be downloaded as a podcast. Go to flaglerbroadcasting.com and click on podcast. Scroll down to Good Morning St. Augustine. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday in our beautiful, ancient, historic city.